Here are all the books that I read in April. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Now for today's video, I'm doing another wrap-up. I know it's very exciting for me to do wrap-ups on this channel because I typically don't do wrap-ups. I typically read a lot of books and I don't want to sit in front of the camera too long to talk about the books, so my wrap-ups are a little bit different from all the wrap-ups that you do see here on booktube. They're only going to be featuring some of the books that I think are worth mentioning and worth your time to learn more about the thoughts that I have regarding these books so that you can make better decisions on what books you should pick up next or as soon as possible. Now, I typically don't do wrap-ups on my channel because I find that I have other ideas for booktube, so like more interesting ideas maybe, but I am kind of in a dry spell with booktube ideas right now, so we're just going to go down to the basics. So I have a lot of physical books that I did read in the month of April, which I'm pretty proud of. I listened to the audiobook for the majority of it, but there were some that I had to sit down and read myself, mostly because reading is definitely different from listening to audiobooks. You are calmer, you're soothed when you're reading a book, and April was a month where it was a little bit hectic and I needed a little time for myself, so focusing on reading a text was definitely helpful. All these books I have to show in this video, it's not just the only books that I read in April. There are going to be a lot of other books that I'm not going to be mentioning, like I said, and you should follow me on Goodreads if you guys want a full comprehensive picture of what I do read in a month and in a year. Okay, so the first book that I do want to talk about is this one called The Wedding Crasher by Mia Sosa. This book I've been waiting for 2 years now because she wrote this book called The Worst Best Man 2 years ago, and then she took her time writing the sequel or writing the next book in the same universe, and I was really highly anticipating for this read. So this book is about our heroine who eavesdrops on a conversation between like the bride and the groom and like the family and things like that, and she quickly realizes that both parties don't actually love each other. She's a firm believer in marrying for love, in the sacredity of a marriage and things like that, so she stops the wedding, and then she quickly realizes that the wedding itself was basically a sham anyways, because our hero, who was the groom, wanted to marry his best friend or like friend for the appearance, because he is going to try to become a partner at the law firm. In order to be a partner at the law firm, you have to have a very well-rounded image. So it was all part of his plan. They were going to divorce anyways, but he desperately needs a date and he desperately needs to save his reputation. So he ropes her in to his plot, and they both have this like fake dating trope and things like that. So overall, I thought that this book was just okay. It definitely was not as good as The Worst Best Man. I didn't enjoy it as much, mostly because I'm not a fan of fake dating tropes. I find them to be highly unrealistic, and I know that books are not supposed to be always realistic, but these are contemporary romances and they take place in the world that we live in, so I expect a little bit of realism. I don't think that I could possibly find someone to fake date with me. Like, I never heard that before, so that's why I just didn't like the trope anyways. But if you do like the trope, I feel like you will enjoy this book. Overall, I gave this book around 3.5 out of 5 stars. Still a good read from Mia, and I would definitely recommend you to check out her books. So the next book that I want to talk about is this one from Lauren Lane. This one's called Made in Manhattan. Forgive me if I did talk about this book already in one of my previous videos. I'm getting a little bit mixed up on the books that I talked to you guys about, but this one essentially is an opposites attract romance. This involves our heroine who has very, a good education. She has class. She is a socialite. She just knows how to properly behave herself and present herself in front of the wealthy class in New York City. So our heroine is tasked with the job of helping our hero, who is from the south of America, who, likes to get dirty, likes to play with mud, likes to farm, likes to get his hands dirty essentially and do the job. So he kind of has a blue collar job while she is from, like the white collar class. Anyways, they completely butt heads a lot because essentially she is trying to change him into someone that he is not, so that he can be accepted by like the board of directors, so that he can take over a company that was actually left for him. And he doesn't really have an interest in taking over this company, but she is determined to have him take over the company. He himself is doing pretty well for himself in the South. Like, he has his own business, so he really doesn't need to move to New York City and into Manhattan to take over this like multi-million-dollar company. So they are trying to convince each other, and they're both learning to follow the rules, and B, for herself to let loose of the rules and to have some fun in her life, because she has been fitting herself into the perfect square box when really she is a triangle kind of situation. So this book was okay. Like, I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. I definitely wanted more tension and wanted more heat in the book. I think that this one, if I remember correctly, it was like a fade to black scene. There wasn't enough like enemies aspect to it for me to really enjoy it a lot, and it was just kind of boring towards like the middle and the end, because I really didn't care about if he was going to stay and take over the company or not. So the next book that I want to talk about is this one called One Italian Summer by Rebecca Surley. So she wrote this book called In 5 Years, and I really enjoyed that book. In 5 Years was essentially about like a girl who kind of wakes up in different times in her life, I remember, and then she deals with like the loss of a friend that she really cares about. So One Italian Summer kind of follows the same themes. Basically, our heroine's mom has unfortunately passed away from, I believe, cancer, and it all happened really quickly and really fast. So she's kind of left with this grief over the loss of her best friend and her parent. So they both had a trip to Italy planned before her death. So she decides that she's gonna go honor her mother's memory by going to Italy. And it's there where she meets this younger version of her mother, and she's like freaked out by it, but she can't let it go because she really misses her mother truly. It's also there where she falls in love and explores like her grief a lot more and tries to understand her mother's like history, like her adulthood, and just to understand more of her personality, because really we know our mom only from the start of our life, but we don't really know like how our parents were when they were a child, when they were a teenager, and when they were adulthood, like what type of personalities they are. So this one was an average read for me too as well. I didn't really find it as special as In 5 Years. I did not cry when I thought I would cry. So this one was also an average read for me. It was 3 out of 5 stars. This one I would recommend you to pick it up if it is a beach day and you just want something to read that isn't really too heavy on romance and it's more realistic fiction. All right, the next book that I did pick up is this one called One Paris Summer by Denise Grover Swank. And now Denise Grover Swank actually writes a lot of adult romance novels. I haven't read any of her adult romance novels, I think. I actually read one, never mind. But I wanted to try this book out because I bought this book from Book Outlet a couple years ago already, and it's still on my shelf, still never read it, so I told myself I have to read it. I physically read this book, which is a huge accomplishment for me because I typically don't have the attention span anymore to sit down and read a physical book. But now that I have anxiety from work and I have anxiety from life in general, I find that sitting down and physically reading a book definitely soothes me a lot. So anyways, long story short, this book is about our heroine who is a piano lover. Like, she loves playing the piano. She wants to get a scholarship for college by playing the piano, but unfortunately her plans for the summer are derailed when she realizes that her father is actually going to be getting married to this woman in Paris, France, and she's like devastated by this like news, because what essentially happened was that she was wearing rose-colored glasses the entire time of her parents' marriage. She thought that they had the perfect marriage until one day he packed up all his stuff and he left so that he could pursue his dreams in like France for like the art museums there and to learn more about art and culture and sculptures and things like that. So she has a deep resentment for her father, and so she really does not want to go to France. So she goes to France with her brother, and it's there where she meets her evil stepsister. She's there where she meets like this boy that she doesn't know if she actually likes. She's also there falling in love with multiple guys. So this is very much like Anna and the French Kiss. I think that's what the book is called. It had the same similar vibes. I enjoyed it for like the first half of this book because I thought that it was going somewhere. Our heroine is definitely like the underdog situation. Nobody really liked her. She felt out of place. Her friends there in France weren't really her friends, because her friends there were basically her stepsister's friends, and her stepsister is completely evil and toxic, and she is such a bee. Like, I hated her, and I thought that there was going to be this like huge redemption arc in the end where she triumphs and she like does everything that she wants to do and she wins over everybody, but really it just was kind of like a really big letdown. I felt like that this book focused a lot on like how bad her stepsister was and the bullying that ensued with the relationship. I also didn't even like our hero that she fell in love with, because I felt that there was like nothing special for him and he was a lot of like hot and cold, which I didn't really understand and I didn't get. So overall this book was, I think, a 2 out of 5 stars for me. I just did not like it, and honestly I should have just never picked it up, but here I am, read it, and I'm telling you about it. Alright, so the next book that I want to talk about is this one called The Singles Table by Sarah Desai. If you guys haven't read Sarah Desai yet, I think you guys should definitely pick up her books. She writes South Asian romances that are fun, flirty, and just so good. It's so easy to listen to via audiobook because it's just a fun time. The ratings on Goodreads are low, and I don't really know why. I never really dove too deeply into those reviews, but for me personally, all her books are always a 4 out of 5 stars for me. So this one involves our heroine who has just went through a bad breakup. She's a lawyer and she's building her career and things like that. And then she goes to a lot of these weddings and she is put at the singles table because like that's like a table where you don't have a significant other, and then your parents are trying to kind of like force you to mingle with the other singles so that you can potentially be married and, you know, it'll be your wedding next time that you go to. So then our hero is kind of like the strict rule abiding type of character. So our heroine is fun, she's cool, she likes celebrities, she likes gossip. Meanwhile, our hero is an ex-military security person, and now he is like a security guard for the stars. So they kind of like work together because like they're in the same circle and things like that. And she thinks that he hates her, but in reality, he actually really likes her, but he's too shy to say it, and nor does he actually want to say it because he doesn't think that he is worthy of her because she is literally sunshine and he has darkness because he has PTSD from the past, from his previous career as a soldier. So she actually sets him up with like a lot of dates, and then he's just kind of like, I don't know what to tell you because like the only person I want to date is you, but he keeps it a secret. So it's like this really fun dynamic. It's like the trope that I like. I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Definitely recommend you to check this out if you guys like the grumpy sunshine trope. All right, the next book that I read is this one that was released in December 2021. I picked it up because obviously it's Berkeley romance and I wanted to read it. This one's called Lovelisses and Fancy Ships by Sarah Grinder Ruse. And I expected a summery read. I expected, you know, fun stuff because the idea and the premise of this book is about our heroine who's tired of her life on a cruise ship. She is a cruise woman, like she works on the cruise. She basically, her whole career is on waters, and she has a whole list of things that she wants to cross off. So I thought it was going to be like one of those books where we kind of see a character develop and grow into herself, be more comfortable in herself, have confidence, explore things that she always wanted to explore, fall in love with new hobbies. But literally this book was exactly the opposite of what I was expecting. This book dealt a lot with grief. For example, our heroine, her nephew actually passed away really recently when we first started the book. Like it was like a year ago, but it's a tragedy because what happened was that the nephew got into a car accident and he passed away suddenly, and now she is picking up the pieces of her life because she really, really liked the nephew, obviously, and she really cares for her sister who is going through it as like a mom who has to deal with the love of their child. And so she always is there to support her, and she always, you know, takes the nieces off her hands so that the mom can like properly grieve in the comfort of her own home without feeling the need that she is, you know, making the whole family more sad than they should be. Anyways, so this also deals with the list, obviously, where it's just like a bunch of things where she and like the nephew had planned to do and things like that. And like she goes ahead and explores things. She also falls in love with this mysterious person that she meets at a bar one day. And overall, this book, I don't know how to rate it because this book deals with grief. It's really hard to rate books that deal with this type of issue because it's like really important and it's not like you can really do it wrong. and unless you're being really insensitive. But it's not what I was expecting, so I wouldn't walk into this book thinking that it's going to be a fun summer read filled with romance. I will walk in this book thinking that there is heavier topics and that your mood will definitely shift from happy to sad. So overall, I still gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it, but now I'm nervous about the second book that Sarah has to be published this summer because I don't want another depressing book. I'm sorry. Okay, so the next book that I picked up is this one from Lauren Kate. This one's called By Any Other Name. And I don't know if this book is her first book that she has ever written. Oh my god. Okay, so Lauren Kate is actually the author of like the teen series Unforgiven, Rapture, Fallen, Passion, Torment, Fallen. It's like the Angel series that everybody read growing up as like a teenager. So I can't believe this is her adult romance debut, and I loved it. I mean, I really liked her Angel series when I was growing up in high school, so I don't know why I'm surprised, but this book I really enjoyed. This one had like the enemies to lovers aspect that I kind of really enjoyed that I didn't expect. Basically, our heroine is an editor for a publisher, and she is trying to get like this really famous person, like this author, to like continue writing their book because it's been like a certain delay. And then she is like in love with that author's writing because she found strength in the words that the author was putting out. She believed in love from the author's words, and she always expected that the author was a she because the name is a girl's name. But little did she know that the girl's name was just a pen name, and that the person who was actually writing the stories that she has been in love with all this time is actually our hero. So there's like this kind of like love-hate relationship between them, and she feels deceived because she knows that the author who uses a female pen name is actually a male. And then she feels like that it's weird because she thought that she found a best friend, but in reality she found like a significant other instead. So I really like this book. I really enjoyed it. I definitely will be reading more Lauren Kate adult romances if she does write it. And I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. Really enjoyable, surprised me a lot. So the next book that I have is this one called Mr. Wrong Number by Lynn Painter, and I walked into this book expecting a really fun romantic comedy. That's exactly what I kind of got. So basically it's a love-hate relationship once again. Our heroine thinks that her older brother's best friend is really attractive, but obviously they're not going to do anything about it because they have that sacredity of like, you know, not dating best friends of your older brother, and then him not dating his best friend's younger sister. So what happens is that they kind of text each other by accident, and then they send each other text messages, and then they get to know each other without knowing that they already knew each other in real life. He quickly finds out that it's her, and he's trying to keep his emotions in check because he actually thinks that the little sister is actually really attractive, she's smart, she's brilliant, and it's definitely someone that he wants to spend, you know, a lot of time with. And then afterwards, she doesn't know it. So they kind of go through the motions of her dating guys and then her texting this mysterious number and finding comfort in it. Overall, I thought that this book was okay. There was like certain pacing elements I didn't like it. I didn't like how it was paced. I thought it was too soon, how he found out so quickly. Events just happened really quickly overall, and then it never took the direction that I wanted it to take. I always thought that it was A plus B equals to C, but then it was like literally A plus C equals to like B, D, and I'm like, what's happening? So overall, I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. If you want to read this book and you feel that, you know, you're like a little bit iffy about it, like you don't know if you should move it on the top of your TBR list or not, I say move it a little bit lower, and I say keep this book on your back burner for something to read when you have absolutely nothing to read, just in case it falls short of your expectations like it did for me. Alright, so the next book that I want to talk about is this one called One Night on the Island by Josie Silver, and Josie Silver wrote this book called One Day in December. I didn't like that book, but she wrote this book called Two Lives of Lydia Bird, which I really like, so that's why I picked it up. I saw a YouTube comment where they said that they didn't really like this book, but I personally walked into this book with very low expectations and I walked out really happy about the story overall. It definitely leans more towards women fiction, but the romance does have a happy ending. So I feel like it's heavy women's fiction, but with romance included as well. So basically our heroine is in a rut and her boss sends her to this like R&R relaxation trip to this cabin on a very small island, and she is expected there to find her muse so that she can continue writing her column and to find different perspectives and angles and try to make everybody interested in reading her stories again. Meanwhile, our hero actually books the same cabin as her unknowingly to himself, and they both see like that they are both staying in the same cabin and they have an enemies to lovers romance, because what happens is that he wants her out because he needs time for himself, because he's trying to collect himself over the fact that he's still not over his ex-wife and he wants to rebuild his relationship with his ex-wife so that they can have a good family together, because like they have children together, but like he wants them to all be together under one roof. And so he's dealing with his own personal issues. Meanwhile, she is dealing with her own personal issues. They both decide to share the space, and it's super cute with like the way that they share their space. I think it's so adorable what they did. I really like that aspect of it. I'm not gonna like spoil it for you guys because I feel like you guys should just read it so you guys can enjoy it as much as I did. And then they have a lot of these different conversations, which is so freaking cute. It reminded me a lot of like Emily Henry's like beach read situations. So freaking cute. And then obviously we had a really realistic ending where they both have to make decisions for themselves to like cut ties and like do things. And I really liked how it panned out in the end. Obviously, I feel like that the ending was a little bit rushed because this book is fairly thin. It's only like 340 pages. I felt like if we had like an extra maybe like 20 pages to kind of develop the ending, it would be a lot better. Overall, I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars, but it's very high 4 out of 5 stars. All right, so the next book that I read is this one called Love at First Spite. Basically, this is a book about our heroine who has an ex and she freaking hates the ex and she wants to ruin his life. So she decides to buy a property right beside his new property with the significant other, and she decides to make it the most obnoxious property on the street, making things that block his view, flashy lights, loud construction noises, anything. And she enlists the help of her office colleague, and then they both spend a lot of time together, kind of just like destroying the house and making the ex-boyfriend's property a living hell too as well. And so this is their like love story. I thought that the ex was such a whiny baby. Like all I just remember is that character just like whining all the time when he was like literally the worst person alive. So I really liked the fact that they were ruining his life. But other than that, this book was just meh. Like it fell short of my expectations. I really didn't have that many expectations walking in when I saw the Goodreads rating being like a 3.6 or something. So I already knew that was going to be an average read, but halfway through it was a little bit boring because all they did was just kind of flirt with each other in the office, but it took a long time for them to get together. So 3 out of 5 stars for this one. I will recommend you to move this one down on your TBR list once again. Read something else instead. Okay, so the last book that I do want to talk about is this one called Electric Idol by Katie Roberts, and I wanted to wait for the perfect moment to read this book. This book came out the beginning of this year, but I waited until April to read it because I just knew that I would really enjoy it, and I absolutely did. This one is a retelling of Psyche and Eros, and I really enjoyed the dark romance aspect of this. It's not really that dark actually, because true dark romance lovers know what dark romance is, but it has that dark feeling that we all like. So basically, Psyche is this beautiful, curvaceous woman, and a lot of people think that she is beautiful, but she's like different from others. And the reason why I'm telling you guys about this is because I felt that it focused a lot on body image too and acceptance, which I really was surprised and shocked about and I really enjoyed. Essentially, Eros is sent by her mother, Aphrodite, to kill Psyche over a certain jealous reason. And Eros, as soon as he lays his eyes on her, he realizes that he can't do it because she is pure, she is nice, she's loving, she's beautiful. She was like the only one that cared about his well-being, and she sees past his angry like face, and she knows deep down that he is a good god. And so he is absolutely in love with her, or just like really attracted to her at first. So they both have a plan to save her life, because he knows that his mom is reckless and his mom will do anything to like get revenge. So they decide to actually marry each other, and it's like a fake marriage trope, and then this will definitely get them out of like trouble. Anyways, so I really like this book. It was like dark, intoxicating, it was sweet, it was sexy, it was everything that I wanted in the book, and I'm really enjoying this series so far. But anyways, that is it for all the books I have read in April that is worth mentioning. I probably missed a few books, but I'll just include them in a May wrap up if I ever post one. So I'll see you guys again next time. Bye.